Chapter 6 of Blueprint for Black Power is called Power and Personality, and we're on page 109 if you are reading along with us. And let's get started. So, we have previously intimated that the power generated and expressed by a particular group reflects, in good part, its social structure and organization. To a marked degree, a group regulates its own and its members' actions, which are expressions and instruments of its powers, under the influence and guidance of its collective norms and standards. We have indicated that organized groups tend to generate and express their power in terms of action are systematically and interactively delineated as means of achieving collective and individual goals. Generally, the social power of a group reflects the appropriateness and efficiency of its organization. However, we must be careful in our discussion of the power of which groups are capable of generating and expressing, not to make their organization the be-all and end-all of their power. Okay, for maximizing power, a group's formal organization may be necessary without at the same time being sufficient. Peace out to you, Pro-Black Perspective. Really good live stream you did earlier on. I was really enjoying that. Make sure everyone you're subscribed, by the way, to brother Onitaset, who's very. What I like about this brother here is that he's. And this is something like when I first started, watching these streams, I was always like, no, I don't agree with that. No, where's he going? We don't talk about these kind of things in the conscious community. that's over time I've learned to really appreciate the fact that, this brother doesn't come with standard, paint by numbers Pan-Africanism or paint by numbers Black consciousness or whatever you might say. He's willing to kind of delve into areas. Question, accepted norms that we have, and I just like that because I like people who get us to think differently and to challenge and question some of our, our understandings of things. And I just think we need more of those kinds of people. And actually, funnily enough, I think this chapter is very much about that, about the importance of having different kinds of people who are bringing different kinds of perspectives into a group, because there's a saying, if everyone thinks the same, then no one's thinking. So shout out to you, my brother, and thank you for joining us in the group as well. So Baba Amos Wilson has just said that a group can be really well organized and all that good stuff, but while that is necessary for a group to be organized, in and of itself, that's not sufficient for the group to have power. And explains because on a more fundamental level, the power of a group is heavily dependent upon the abilities and characteristics, in short, the personalities of its individual members who constitute it and perform its organizational roles and functions. James Coleman in 1969 very aptly describes the impact of the characteristics of group members on group effectiveness. Quote, a group's effectiveness depends heavily on the individuals within it, since ultimately it is the individuals who actually make and implement group decisions. Page 110. Members with serious personality weaknesses, immaturities, or lack of essential skills may disrupt or prevent group progress, just as mature, competent, and dedicated members help to ensure group effectiveness and success. Characteristics of members, especially in terms of the possession of essential competencies and commitment to group goals, are especially important when the group is under severe stress. A group's loss of dedicated and capable members, particularly those with outstanding leadership skill or other key abilities needed in the group, by the group, can be seriously disruptive to group performance and effectiveness, unquote. We may infer from Coleman's exposition that a group's power, potential, or actuality may be remarkably enhanced or gravely weakened by enhancing or impairing the abilities and characteristics of its individual members. Where the personal qualifications and qualities of its individual members are too scarce or inadequate, where they may suffer conflicting needs, i.e., needs which pull them in opposing directions, where their emotional conflicts and tensions cause debilitating irritations among them, leading to their inability to objectively consider their problems, as well as distracting their attention from the task at hand, the group may fail to achieve its goals or may reach inadequate or unsatisfactory resolutions of its problems. In sum, the personality characteristics of a group's membership or the overall general personality orientations of the members of a group heavily influence that group's ability to solve problems. And then this last sentence is in italics. To a measurable degree, the power of a group reflects the power of the personalities of its members. And as you know, I've been doing a lot of reading around health and nutrition, and what this kind of reminds me of, and why I just love all this, I love this, the way these things connect. This reminds me of when I hear people talking about the gut microbiome. People talk about the gut microbiome, which is all of the microbes that we have in our gut, which the gut, by the way, starts in the mouth and goes all the way down through the esophagus, through the intestines, large, small intestines, all the, stomach, all that, all the way through out the, the other end. And I hear people talking about the gut microbiome and talking about how it's really important that we have a diverse microbiome, a wide range of microbes, whether it be fungi or bacteria or viruses, anyway, viruses. And when you have that wide range of different bacteria and fungi and so forth, then your health is optimized, because all of those different elements, all of those different organisms, that exist within us, the billions of organisms that actually would make up part of who we are, help us to digest food properly, to turn all the different genes on and off and all that sort of stuff. So a healthy gut microbiome is all about a diversity. If you've got a very narrow microbiome, then your health is going to be suboptimal. And it's kind of similar here with the group, isn't it? If as a group you have a preponderance of people who love to talk, like me, a preponderance of people who like to be out at the front and shouting and hollering, but not many people who want to do the coordinating, not many people who want to do the planning, not many people who want to look after the watoto, them, the children, them, the picnic, not many people who want to, who are skilled in finances and mathematics and these kinds of stuff. If you've got an imbalance of characters in a group, then that group is not going to succeed. And I think that's what Bubba Amos Wilson is getting at here. And I feel like Bubba Amos Wilson would be pleased with me making that connection between the gut microbiome, the biology, and the body politic, if you want to call it that, because I think he in many places in his writings and lectures, he did kind of make some of those parallels, and I think he's going to actually in this chapter as well. So that's where we did it with that. So on page 110, next section is called Personality Differences as a Division of Labor. And in this short section, he says, in an interesting sense, the personalities which together compose the membership of a group, a society, or a culture provide for a somewhat natural division of labor or function within it. For within limits, individual differences, i.e. differences in personality among the members of a group, society, or culture, function together to enhance the group's survivability and to maintain its adaptability. Personality differences within a group provide a pool of alternative ideas and behaviors with respect to customary and routinized ideas and behaviors, which, if appropriately utilized, increase the probability of the groups adapting effectively to changing conditions by making needed changes within its own structure and functioning. Personality differences within a group increase the probability that some person or persons within it may recognize and make other members of the group aware of changing or new conditions, propose new modes of behavior, and motivate other group members to make the necessary changes for effectively dealing with changed or new circumstances. We're on page 111 here. Since the personalities that compose a group are key sources of its power, are themselves sources of power, it behooves us, in discussing the bases of social power, to examine personality as a unit and instrument of the social power of a group, society, or culture. We will begin by posting a working definition of personality and proceed to look at personality as an instrumentality of social power. So yeah, kind of what I said, but he's going to focus on the actual individual personality rather than necessarily the biological personality, if that makes sense. Although they're connected, obviously our personalities are largely about our biology, aren't they? So here we go. Personality as an instrument of power, page 111. Sorry, as an instrument of social power. We shall define personality without claims of definitivity as more or less enduring psychophysically organized ways of thinking, feeling, desiring, and behaving, as they are assumed to be partly determined by an individual's fairly consistent or characteristic attitudes, values, perceptions, motives, and other abilities, all of which may be said to uniquely describe him or her as a person. So let me just go over that again. So a personality he's defining, Baba Amos Wilson is defining a personality as the kind of consistent ways that somebody thinks, feels, acts, as determined or as shaped by that person's values, ideology, and so on, and also abilities. Interestingly, all of that is a person's personality. Is a personality. It is important to note in this context that personality is generally perceived as organized, as a dynamic organization of traits, tendencies, abilities, intentions, and behavior. The behavior elicited from an individual in response to internal and or external stimuli is organized, i.e., is an expression of his personality organization. Under normal circumstances, human behavior is coordinated, not random. I just wanted to say as well, make sure you do, if you haven't already signed up, go to eliwananda.substack.com and sign up. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You get a whole bunch of stuff from the free newsletter. But if you sign up on the paid level, then you get the full archive of all of the We Are readings that we have done and will ever do in future, as well as the archive of other videos that I'll be doing. So personality is organized. It's not random. A personality is organized. Yeah, under normal circumstances, human behavior is coordinated, not random, and is initiated and mediated by the organized functioning of an organized brain and body, a coordinated system of organs, themselves composed of cellular subunits and homeostatically regulated substances and activities. Hello, that microbiome, anybody? You know. All of this is to say, even at the individual level, at the level of the individual personality, organization, as defined by its many structurally and functionally related levels and complexities, is the base or source of power, of the ability of the individual to solve problems in the world. This implies that the contents of personality, i.e., its abilities, tendencies, interests, tastes, and the nature of their dynamic organization largely determine the power of the person. And in the context of our current discussion, the contribution, for better or worse, that he or they can make to their group, society, and or culture. We reiterate an earlier statement to the effect that one major way of controlling the power of a group is to control the contents, abilities, tendencies, interests, and tastes, and their collective organizational expression in its constituent members. This is on, we're going into page 112 now. There is a general tendency among centric psychologists to overemphasize the uniqueness or utter differentness of individual personalities. This is perhaps to be expected in a culture whose guiding ideology is that of rugged individualism, or which idealizes almost unbridled individual freedom, and one which is horrified by almost any form of collectivism, cooperativism, socialism, or communalism. However, as we remarked earlier, one of the most remarkable things about individuals is their inveterate tendency to form groups. The gregariousness of humans, as well as many other animals, has fascinated behavioralists, philosophers, and pundits across the ages. What is most remarkable about individuals who form distinct groups is their exceedingly high level of conformity and obedience to customary rules, values, expectations, and legal standards. Even more remarkable is their sameness or similarity of interests and tastes, their apparent love or need to eat much the same foods and drinks prepared in much the same ways, to be entertained by much the same amusement, to dress pretty much alike, speak the same language, express similar attitudes, like the same kinds of music, and behave pretty much within a rather narrow range of a very broad spectrum of behavioral possibilities. Perhaps this is not as remarkable as it seems at first, when we recognize the fact that an effectively functional group must maintain some necessary measure of conformity and unanimity. In fact, if it is to achieve its goals in a planned and coordinated manner. In fact, overlapping personality tendencies and tastes which characterize the different personalities of the individuals who constitute a group provide that group with its necessary degree of conformity. Their non-overlapping tendencies and tastes, however, provide it with its necessary degree of flexibility, both together being necessary for maximizing its adaptability to changing circumstances. Conformity and unanimity in service essential to coordinated group functioning and effectiveness serve a basic need of the group for self-preservation and therefore must operationally develop in any organized group. Social control of individual, yeah, okay. Consequently, in spite of individual differences, organized groups tend to exert some initial and ongoing pressures on their members towards conformity in vital areas of group life. Groups seek to induce conformity in their members through role definitions, setting limits to what is to permissible behavior, convincing them of the validity of group goals and values, conditioning them through the manipulation of a broad variety of rewards and punishments. Moreover, a large proportion of basic and individual needs can best only be satisfied through group activity and institutions. Going into page 113, the individual is attracted to the group in terms of his and its commonality of interests, values, and goals, the success and status of the group, its exclusivity, its ability to provide him security and anxiety reduction, and to relieve him of his loneliness and alienation, among other things. That's a point that's a very, very important point there, that I think any group, any organization that you set up or you're part of must make sure that it's almost like addressing the whole person, if you like. So yes, we want to make sure that our people, if you're setting up some kind of political campaigning group, or I don't know, something like that. Yes, it's important that we, have similar political ideas with regard to, I don't know, how the means of production in a society should be organized. Maybe your group might insist on having some kind of shared understanding with regard to spirituality, with regard to cosmology, with regard to the importance of, certain practices that you might do in a group, whether it be praying, libations, calling on the ancestors, other ritual practices, and so on. Yeah, you need all that. But I think it's really important as well to make sure that people who come into the group are looked after. So you know, that we are addressing their other areas of their life, their personal areas. So one of the things I've been thinking about, actually, as I've been doing all my study and whatnot into vitamin D, is that I would suggest that as organizations, we should be, you know, we should be advising our members to, okay, listen, you know, understand what your vitamin D levels are. Go and get your vitamin D levels checked, and other, not just vitamin D, but other kind of, you know, nutrient factors and so forth. You know, we should be speaking to our people and encouraging them to go and look into these things and get these things checked out, and, you know, advising them, this is how you can go and get your vitamin D levels checked. This is you know, these are a good way of eating that can help to boost your vitamin D levels or boost your immunity and all that sort of stuff. Because there's, you know, there's no point in having, especially as African people in the diaspora, where we are, you know, this is not our home, and we are constantly under, you know, under the psychic and physical, psychosocial attacks of anti-blackness. We're going to be sick. We're going to be ill. We're going to be unwell, you know, and we should not have to bear that burden alone, especially when we're, you know, presumably devoting much of our time and energy into organizing, trying to help to organize amongst our people for the betterment of our people. Let's make sure we look after the physical and mental health as much as we can of one another, intertwined into all of the other things that we are doing, because obviously that also is a big part of spirituality, isn't it? Spirituality is not just a abstract, you know, mental thing. Spirituality does involve the body. It's all about the body, you know. So yeah, Baba Amos Wilson is preaching here that we, you know, people come to groups not just to hear things that they agree with, or hear things that will make them feel proud to be Black and proud to be African or whatever, but also to get some of their needs met. And it's not a selfish thing per se. It's not selfish in a negative way. It's just a human thing. We need, you know, we have needs. And the whole point of everything that we're hopefully doing as far as African organizing or whatever it might be, content creation, the whole point of all of this is to see how we can better get our needs met as African people in this world, isn't it? That's the point. I mean, if that's not the point, then what is the point? You know, so very important point there that Baba Amos Wilson's making there on page 113.